and it's Energumen opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices. Energumen by a romping 10-12.
Boyle Sports has it all. Money back meetings every day. UK and Irish racing live streaming. Extra places and money back all losers offers. And a bet 10 get 40 welcome offer. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
Hello, and welcome back to episode number 10 of the Road to Cheltenham Challenge. With myself and Ronan Groome. Of course, the show proudly sponsored by Boyle Sports. Ronan Groome, the countdown is on.
Very much so. I think we're 9 weeks away now. Probably not the most eventful weekend we're going to look back on. There will be more crazier weekends coming up, but a few notable performances nonetheless that we can get stuck into. So looking forward to it.
100% agenda for the show, as always. Of course, we're going to take 5 performances with a view to Cheltenham. We're going to star rate them as we always do. Next section of the show, we're going to give you a tracker horse and a couple as well, just to note that we've put up earlier on in the series, and one actually runs tomorrow at Exeter.
Download the Boyle Sports app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
So this is the 5 performances, Ronan. You've taken 3. You saw more racing than I did this weekend, but I have caught up, I must say. So I have watched back a couple of replays and some coverage. And we had, of course, 2 big grade ones, one this side of the water, one across the other side at Sandown on Saturday. I've given you the top 3 there. So Champ.ie, Appreciated, and Love Envoy. You've been in charge of star rating these. So fire away.
Yeah, well, let's start with Champ.ie. For me, the performance of the weekend, and maybe I'm a bit taken by this just because I was at Nice yesterday. I was working there. I was talking to connections and stuff after the race, but I just thought he was really impressive. Jumped really well in front. A lot of people will look at this and think, yes, this is another Danny Mullins masterclass in front. He's dictated the pace. Do we trust the form? But I think there's more to it than that. I thought he jumped really well in front. This is a horse bouncing back from when he was odds on for the Royal Bond, going back up in trip, went off in front, kept things simple, jumped really well, stacked them up before the turn for home. But he still had numerous challenges, notably Irish Point coming up on his outside. But for me, Champ.ie never looked like getting beaten. Boxed on really, really well. The front 4 have come clear. The 2 McManus horses in 3rd and 4th, and you don't think, for all hard as Irish Point tried, I don't think he was ever going to get by him in the straight. They omitted the last 2 hurdles, which obviously is not ideal, but David Casey and Danny Mullins, I believe Willie was off in Barbados on his holiday, so he wasn't that nice yesterday, but David Casey was there and Danny Mullins there, both very much of the opinion that if they jumped the last 2 hurdles, it would have helped Champ.ie more than running on the flat. I believe that as well, because if you look at the horse, he jumps really well. He jumped really well yesterday. And I just like the profile of him now. He's a horse who has the speed for 2 miles. He showed that at Tipperary. He showed that when finishing 4th, albeit when he was beaten favourite in the Royal Bond. And I like that profile going into the Ballymore. That's a kind of system or a trend in the Ballymore that's come up trumps plenty of times when speed has come to the fore, the 2 mile grade 1 speed. So I think he's a little bit underestimated off the back of that. Maybe people looking at him thinking, yeah, he got the run of the race in front. But I don't think there'll be a horse with better form going into the race. He does indeed go for it. And for that matter as well, I do think he will go for this race. Will he?
The Ballymore.
Yeah, for the Ballymore. I think he just has a lovely profile for it. So yeah, I was very happy to get him inside. I thought he'd be a bit shorter for the Ballymore. Spoiler alert, he might just be my selection later on when we come to it. But in and around the 7-1, 6-1 mark, any of those prices made a bit of appeal to me. I think he can put it right up to Hermes Allen, and would not be surprised at all to see him vying for favouritism on the day. So yeah, I was impressed. The other 2 Appreciated. We'll start with him because he was at Nice as well. To be honest, I don't think we learned much here at all. To be honest, I don't think we learned much with Love Envoy either. We'll go to Appreciated first. He jumped well in front. Sadly, the race was marred obviously by the fall. Top Bandit sadly fatally injured, and obviously Jack Kennedy taking a very bad injury as well. It's going to keep him out on the sidelines, so that's sad. But What Appreciate did, look, we didn't learn much. He just jumped off in front, jumped well, but beat virtually nothing in behind him. I was surprised to see him cut further off the back of that. I guess comments from connections are maybe he stays 2 miles now, or they might skip the Dublin Racing Festival. So if he does do that, he's probably more likely to stick to 2 miles for now, given he's not proven over anything further. So look, Appreciate it was good, but form-wise, he didn't do much to enhance his profile for me. And the same with Love Envoy, I have to say. I know you might have a conflicting view here, and you can come in off the back of this, but I love her. I love the mare. I think she's really good. I backed her straight after Cheltenham for the Mayor's Hurdle this year after last year's Cheltenham. But did we learn much from what she did at Sandown? She beat a horse she should have been beating. And of course, she always wins on ground. She always wins on. Granted, she was impressive, but she was 130 on. So I thought she was good and fine, but did we learn anything more about her than she's already showed us before? Probably not. So you can come in there, Basil, because I know you like the performance a lot.
Yeah, I'll come in on just two things. One, obviously, just you asked me about Love Envoy. I thought it was a very impressive performance. Martello Sky, of course, won this race last year. She's finished 9.5 lengths behind Marie's Rock. Off the back of it, going to Cheltenham in the Mayor's Hurdle. So I think that's decent form. They went a decent clip. I think they're being quite harsh on her, giving her a 3-star rating. Love the way she switched off in this race. She can take a bit of a grip early on in the races, but I think she's proved her versatility here. Going up and trip the extra. What are we going to have? 4 furlongs. Albeit last season she won on the new course. It is back to the old course, obviously, for the Mayor's Hurdle this time around. I would think she's a massive player. And what I loved about her is Johnny Burke was interviewed afterwards, and one of the most notable, there was 2 things I took out of his interview. One was her jumping, and her jumping was very, very slick on Saturday. Obviously, soft ground is I wouldn't say it's important to her because she's won on good to soft in the past, but I'd say she probably is more effective with more dig in the ground. I do think that is fair to say, but she's absolutely scooted clear, and the fact that they've held her up in this particular race, she's just travelled into the race, jumped her way to the front 3 out. She was held up. She jumps. He couldn't hold on to her any longer. I thought it was a massive performance against a good yardstick who, Martello Sky, I reckon, obviously this was her big day. She won the race last season. And I think the form works out everywhere. So Love Envoy, I thought it was a very decent performance. I think it's quite harsh giving her a 3, Mr. Groome. Moving on to, you mentioned Champ.ie. Just to mention, I thought it was a massive run by the second horse, Irish Point. And I didn't think Jordan Gameford, he rode him wide most of the way around, made a mistake at the second last. Obviously, if they had left the last, was it 2 flights they took out at this? The second last, he made a bit of a mistake. Wasn't too hard on the horse up the straight, kind of let him gather himself, and I thought he ran on really, really strongly to the line, and I wouldn't discount his chances in a Ballymore. I think Champ.ie, everything went his way in the race. He led. I think you said that he, if they'd have left in the hurdles, that would have suited him. I'm not so sure. Danny's obviously going to go and say that after the race. I do believe this horse is probably better over 2.5 to 3 miles. People have him in for an Albert Bartlett. You're probably going to say he's not slow. I think he would be found out at the minimum trip in Grade 1s. I think we saw that in the Royal Bond, although he was given a strange ride on that occasion, wasn't he? Champ.ie was well supported on the day. Should they have maybe rode him to so his stamina would be seen to best effect?
They said that was mentioned quite a lot. Just to come in off that, they said that a lot. They believe the race didn't go their way, or the tactics wise, got it wrong in the Royal Bond. So there is that yesterday was kind of how
he looks a very he looks a very, very versatile horse though, Ronan. In fairness, like you could, he's going to be competitive no matter what way they go. And I'd say probably the intermediate distance you probably have it spot on with the Ballymore, but you never know. It's Willie Mullins. If anything was to happen, Facile Vega, it looks like that's the route he's going now, isn't it? 2 miles. That seems to be Willie has said that. We were kind of saying, would we potentially see this horse go up and trip? Grange Clear West has disappointed majorly. I think the first 2 are decent horses. And the one I'd like to be side with going forward would probably be Irish Point. That was just his third start, of course, on
Big
the race course in Ireland. Yeah.
big form upgrade for the Royal Bond. What do you think of that from Marine National point of view? I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers have got Marine National on side, and you'd have to say the Royal Bond is probably the real winner yesterday, with Irish Point and Champ.ie finishing first and second. So, I'd say if you back Marine National, you'd be happy enough to have seen that yesterday.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, but I don't know. I'm not a massive Marine National man myself, Ronan Groome. Irish Point, I thought it was a cracking performance in the Royal Bond. Over a trip, probably plenty short for him on just a second start. He went off big odds, didn't he? 18-1, massive run. Marine National has obviously come and mugged them on the line. On ground, probably didn't suit Marine National. So they're going straight. They're entitled to go to the Supreme. I haven't found anything just yet that I want to come in and take on Facile Vega. But obviously, we had Parmenion. He's my one dud selection at this point in the challenge. You'd have to think. But then again, who knows? Right, Ronan Groome, my 2-star performances that I have to star rate is Timurus and Tell Me Something Girl. We've already mentioned, of course, Love Envoy. You've given it a 3. I think you're being harsh on him. Appreciated. We could have spoke a lot about him. I thought he was quite careful at his fences. I don't think I could give him any more than a 3. You're probably being kind to him. Timurus, I've given him a 3.5-star rating for his performance in the Tolworth. He did lots wrong and still won the race. I quite liked him at Haydock on his penultimate effort. I think in terms of the Tolworth, he's 3 from 3 over hurdles. The one word probably to use about this horse off the back of it is he's a massive, massive engine. I think that's clear to see. The further they went in this contest on obviously softer ground, the better he became. Colonel Harry has made this a decent test. Jumped well. They've gone hard from the front. The one worry out of the race is the nearest in the market to Timurus. Obviously authorised speed, scope bad after the race, and Arctic Brazil didn't run his race. So I know you're a big Arctic Brazil fan coming into the race. So maybe that's how good really is the form. I know you like the horse to finish second, Lasteroy. I'm not entirely sure. Timurus, his jumping was pretty atrocious. He started the race lined up in second. He was shuffled back to 5th on the wide outside. His jumping was atrocious early in the contest. Down the back has got his act together, put in some really decent jumps. The further they went in the contest, the better he jumped. And obviously travelled into the straight on the bridle and put down at the second last and the last and still won. And I don't know what he was doing up the straight. He was hanging out to the left. I just reckon the horse has an awful lot of ability. Would the ground want to be soft? Noel Feely spoke after the race about he was a little bit worried before the race about the ground, even though he'd handled the conditions at Haydock. I suppose Haydock soft is probably different to Sandown soft. I would think for him to have a chance in the Supreme, I think he'd probably want a bit of dig in the ground. He probably wanted soft base. Now we know he's handled it. And I thought his stamina came to the fore more than, he's just took off and shown them a clear pair of heels. So how strong is the form is the first thing. Secondly, his jumping. To win a Supreme, he's going to have to jump a hell of a lot better. I didn't think his jumping was wonderful. So I know it was a grade 1 by name, but I don't think I could give him any more than a 3.5 on this occasion. And I think he'll need to. I do like him, by the way. I like the horse, but I just think he's far from the finished article. What did you think of him?
Yeah, I tend to agree with most of what you said there. It just didn't look great. Like the obviously Arctic Brazil's bombed, and as you said, at authorised speed hasn't run his race at all, and scoped dirty after, and the front 4 basically come clear. He's travelled really well all the way, but I don't know, maybe expecting him to pick up a bit better, that might be a bit harsh on the ground. It ended up quite soft. He jumped the last like an absolute fridge. Not a very aesthetically.
Never saw Fridge jumping, Ronan.
Huh?
I never saw Fridge jumping. I also heard someone describe.
Well, imagine what Fridge jumping. That would have been Timurus at the last. So, Yeah, I don't know the who in behind him. Like I do like Lastro. Lastro I thought was a big run, but in the context of running in a Grade 1 for the first time, so I'm not suggesting that Tamiris bet a very good horse there. Just thought it was a big run from him, coming off the back of the little experience that he has. The same with the third and Me in Line, who's probably granted has a bit more runs to his name and a bit more experience and is improving away, but was an 18-1 shot here, as well as the runner-up who was 16-1. So, look, if you gave me Tamiris against the Royal Bondfield, for example, I think he'd be an honourable fifth there behind the front four. I think he's plenty to do. As I said, as you said as well, I do like the horse. I love the way he won a Haydock and he really kicked on there, but I think he still has a bit to find come Cheltenham.
I think he is. Like obviously the dream is still alive. Noel Feely has worked wonders, hasn't he, with that syndicate? In fairness, and
excellent.
And just echo that as well. Like I do like the horse, and I'm not trying. I just think there certainly is lots to work on going to Cheltenham and lining up in something like as Supreme. Nichols was asked afterwards, and obviously he's mentioned Noel and Alferoff, so he puts him in the same bracket as those sort of horses who have obviously rocked up in novice contest at Cheltenham and won in the past. So, yeah, interesting. But a 3.5 star for myself, Mr. Groome. And the final one then, obviously, was Tell Me Something Girl. Now, there's people probably going to be looking at this star rating and saying, how on earth can the lads have Tell Me Something Girl rated higher than Love Envoy?
Yeah, that's me, Basil. I'm in that group.
Yeah, no, well, let me just say, on the face of it, obviously if we were judging her strictly on her jumping, she doesn't even get a 1 star. She doesn't even get a 1 star. She must have some engine to be able to win, given £6 to Insti, who's rated 139 over hurdles and is going to be a better chaser. Obviously, she was quite raw and inexperienced herself coming into the contest. But Tell Me Something Girl, she's notorious for coming forward from her first couple of runs every season. So we know that already. She jumped terribly on her chasing debut. She's done the same again here. How she's stood up is like Buckaroo. Genuinely. Rachel Blackmore, how she's sat in the saddle. This horse, and she goes and wins by 6 lengths. I thought that's, if this was strictly on her jumping, you give her no more than a 1 star, if even. But I just think if connections do not send Tell Me Something Girl back over hurdles off the back of this run, she went off, what was it, 4-1 for the Mare's Hurdle last season? Honeysuckle now not going to the race. Surely to God they have to have a go at the Mare's Hurdle once again. She came down in the race last year. She was travelling all over them when she came down in the race last season. She'd have a massive chance. I just think she's a massive engine. I couldn't believe Rachel Blackmore stayed on, to be honest. I didn't see the race live, but watching it back, it was incredible.
And to be honest, Peter Maloney, Kelly Alexander's racing manager, said after she might have had an overreach as well, so that might have done. She came in with a nasty cut, and that might have been the reason for her poor jumping. And apparently, she jumps really well at home. Henry de Rom had reported that she was really excited about her going fencing, and this was out of kilter of what she'd been showing at home. So maybe there is an excuse there. Interesting to see what they do, whether how bad that is. If that is a little nick, that maybe does she need a bit of time off. But if all is good next week or whatever, and she's ready to roll, it is interesting to see what they do. Now, obviously, Honeysuckle not going to run in the mares. Or did they stick to the Mare's Chase?
She's 16-1 with BOYLESPORTS for the Mare's Hurdle.
That's a big price if you knew she was going for sure. I just wonder, is the Mare's Chase a little lighter than the Mare's Hurdle competition wise? But then again,
she will not be winning the Mare's Chase. That is,
but if you take the overreach or the nasty cut as a potential, an excuse for her, and granted, I do know it's not ideal to go to Cheltenham off the back of that jumping experience, but if they're confident enough in her jumping, and that was the reason why she jumped so poorly, give her another go, maybe run her once more.
She's had 2 goes now, and I take what you're saying. But if Connections haven't learned from Bob Ollinger last season, I know it's a completely different situation, but the horse does not clearly, on her chasing debut, to me, the obvious is just a sender back over hurdles. It's a very open looking race this season. Obviously, 2 British runners at the top of the market, Marie's Rock, Epitante, and Love Envoy as well. So, Honeysuckle not going for the race. Echoes and Rain, is that the best of Willies? We haven't seen Brandy Love yet. You've put Echoes and Rain in your team. It looks an open contest this season at a big price, 16-1, as you said, if you knew she was going, absolutely. But I thought on the face of it, it was a very, I couldn't give her a 4 or a 5-star performance for that performance, but how she's won the race by 6 lengths, on top of what you've said.
The runner-up hasn't jumped well either, like. That's
hasn't. But I think she's I think Insti is I think she sets a fair level now, and she was given her weight as well. So look, that's just what we've come up with here, Ronan Groome. Should be people that will agree and disagree. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. Next section of the show, Ronan Groome, is time for the tracker horse, and we have had a bit of success with this of late.
Download the BoyleSports app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. BoyleSports, this is betting.
So the tracker horse has delivered in spades in recent weeks. Playful Saint winning at 2-1. Lucky Max 15-8. Mr. Groome, what are you going to throw into the mix this week?
Yeah, I mentioned him already. I'm going to put in Lastro Boy for Evan Williams, and the Ruckers just thought he'd run a big race in the Talworth on what was just his second start over hurdles. He previously won a maiden hurdle at Foss last. Okay, did it well there. Probably a lowly race, so he's taken a big step up. Granted, I'm not completely sure about the form, whether it's true Grade 1 standard, but whatever way you look at it for him, it's a big step up from what he's done before. One of the most inexperienced horses in the race. Grade 1, as you said, they win a decent clip, or seem to go anyway, and he's come through and ran second and finished ahead of some nice types in behind. I think for sure he could be one that might go a bit further. Might be 2.5 miles, might be his bag in future. He's already a 6-year-old, so nicely developed for a novice. Could he go for possibly a handicap hurdle at the festival if they got another run into him? Absolutely. So nice run from Lastro Boy. So put him in the tracker.
Absolutely. Just to note, our tracker horse from last week runs tomorrow at Exeter. My tracker horse, Anklers Crag, in the 135, 3-1 currently at the moment with BoyleSports for the 135 tomorrow. Heavy ground, just the 4 runners, was travelling at Exeter over the same course and distance very, very well. Was held up. Fergus Gillard was riding. Tom Skoo on tomorrow. Fell last time, but was tanking into the race. So I do think Antlers Crag at odds of 3-1 could be worth a play tomorrow. That was last week's tracker horse. Want us to throw into the mix is Escape and Evade, one from the north of England. We like these north of England tracker horses. Escape and Evade, 7-year-old, really lightly raced. Won on its just a second start with Brian Hughes up at Ayr on the 2nd of January. So I thought this was an impressive performance off a mark of 120. He's probably going to go up £10 for that, if not more. Was a winner by 15 lengths, but as I said, really lightly raced, jumped very well in the race, handled the conditions well. It was actually really testing at Ayr. I think there could be a lot more to come from this. Escape and Evade has only had 5 starts on the race course proper, and I like that performance. And another one to mention as well is Florida Dreams, won a bumper, beat a well-regarded sort from Ollie Murphy's Active Authority, and Florida Dreams won for Nicky Richards, getting up to beat Active Authority, which was well supported on the day. That's another smart bumper horse. And on Thursday's podcast, someone did mention it in the comments as well. The name is after escaping me, but Florida Dreams, I do think, is a nice horse, and one certainly to follow. I had to put into the tracker straight away when it heads over hurdles. Can't see it's staying over bumpers for the remainder of the season. So I'd say it'll send that one over hurdles. Florida Dreams, one to follow. So Ronan, that was the tracker horses for this week. As mentioned, I was in Milan sipping on the Aperol Spritz, so I didn't see too much. We'll be back next week with, I'm sure, plenty more tracker horses, but it has been delivering the goods. Don't forget, of course, last season, Love Envoy, she won 5 races in a row. I think we had her pretty early in the tracker section, so it pays to follow the tracker horse. Next section, we'll rattle on. Big question.
Boyle Sports has it all. Money back meetings every day. UK and Irish racing live streaming. Extra places and money back all losers offers. And a bet 10 get 40 welcome offer. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
The big question this week, Mr. Groome, and we have 2 of them, so we answer 2 every single week if we can. So get your questions in for next week. The big question, I said I'd give you the first one here because I suppose it's about the quality of racing field sizes over Christmas. And just reading out the question, Michael Bimson, the big question, bearing in mind the quality of racing and the field sizes over Christmas due to the inclement weather, isn't it time for a shift towards a more compressed program of racing, which it is shown over the Christmas leads to better quality of racing and a better product for race goers? So Michael Bimson looking for a compressed program. Ronan Groome, thoughts?
Michael said the nail on the head. Like, lo and behold, a few meetings get called off and you get a glimpse of what racing could be like in Britain. And it's not rocket science, you know, it really isn't. You know, we see that there was numerous examples. The shallow hurdle had 14 runners, like unheard of, because they had to go there. There wasn't other races for them to go to elsewhere. So once you decrease the amount of races available to these runners, there's no ducking and diving, to use the phrase that made famous by Gordon earlier in the season. There's no ducking, diving available, or less of it available, and horses have to take each other on. Like, look at the Rel Keel hurdle. That's a product that was so competitive because of there was no international hurdle. So they all had to go there. Even the Talworth was probably a beneficiary of horses not being able to run elsewhere. It's much better. It's much better, in my opinion. I'd say in a lot of people's opinions that these horses can run and take each other on. And you know what? They'll be better served as well coming to Cheltenham because they'll be more battle hardened. Like, think of what the Dublin Racing Festival is going to do for the Irish now coming up. The ones that run there, at least, they'll all have got a really, really solid race in just before Cheltenham. You know, battle hardened going into the festival, ready for that Grade 1, the red hot heat of a Grade 1 race, because they've been in one already at Leopardstown. So absolutely, Michael, I think you're on the money, and hopefully, I think that they're slowly trying to get this going now in Britain, and trying to get all the relevant parties together, because it's not the same system as we have over here. It's much more harder to get everyone on side, but it seems like they're slowly trying to get that in place and have a look at the program book, but it definitely needs work. And at least we got a taste of what it could be like this year, albeit, you know, because of an act of God, I suppose, with the frost.
Second question comes from Cyber Sorbet. Happy New Year, everyone. Great show as always. The picture's beginning to look clear and the countdown is now in earnest. And while a question compliments my selection on Blue Lord, Mr. Groome, and well, he has, of course, did he run too well last time out, and is he more likely runner in the more prestigious Champion Chase? I suppose this the chess piece probably is Allaho here, isn't it, Mr. Groome? Because if Allaho runs, do you just have a go at the Champion Chase with Blue Lord? Interesting listening to Daryl Jacob on the Road to Cheltenham Challenge, speaking about how much this horse has grown up physically since the last time he sat on the horse. And this season, obviously, Daryl plays a big role in terms of the Maneer horses coming over to the Irish yards. Obviously, he mightn't always ride because he's contracted to ride the first string in the UK. But not necessarily with stable top jockey. Obviously, Paul Townend would have the first choice of the Mullins contingent. But speaking about Blue Lord, just how much this horse has improved physically, I was mighty impressed, I should say, down at Clonmel, in the Clonmel Isle, over 2.5 miles. He was very keen early in the race, and for him to do what he done at the end of the race on that type of ground first time up, I thought that was a fair performance. For me, I'll stick with it. I still think he will be a better horse in the second half of the season over 2.5 miles. I would just worry, would he have that real turn of foot on the old course over 2 miles against an Ergamine. I think that's another level up again. And over 2.5 miles, if Allaho is in the race or if he's not, I do think Blue Lord, I think he would be seen to better effect in the Ryanair. What's your thoughts?
It's hard. Yeah, it's a hard one because the only evidence we have of him over 2.5 miles really over fences is that run you say, and it was a good run. He beat Tornado Flyer there, and we were talking about Tornado Flyer as running a brilliant trial for the King George after that. So it was a fine run, but gone back to 2 miles because that was the obvious race for him at Leopardstown, and he's won really well. There's a chance we could be just underrating the 2 mile novices from last season. Like you see what Edward Stone did in Tingle Creek, and you see what he did. He's probably the best Irish novice around last season, novice chaser. And you see what he did against, Chacun Poursois at Leopardstown. Is not, I know he made a mistake at a crucial stage, but he wouldn't have won Chacun Poursois. I'm pretty sure of that. And Blue Lord has beat him really, really well. So I thought it was a fine run. It's hard to conclude. I know you're looking at the Clonmel race, and you have an inkling that he might be better over 2.5 miles. It's very hard to make a case for that, I think. Off the back of just that evidence and what we saw at Leopardstown. So I think I'd stick to 2 miles for now, and
that's what they're going to do. Darragh Jacob has mentioned that I think that the plan is to have a go at the Dublin Racing Festival over 2 miles, and make a call after that. So, but I suppose if the exchanges are anything to go by at the moment, certainly the 2.5 mile appears to be the preferred. Right, so that's what I would suggest is 2.5 miles. Ronan Groome wants to see it at Leopardstown over 2 miles one more time. So that's get your questions in for next week. Of course, 2 big questions every single week. But Mr. Groome, it's time for the next section of the show, which is the Portfolio Spotlight.
Download the BOYLESPORTS app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. BOYLESPORTS, this is betting.
So this week, Mr. Groome, Mark Lewis, who wished us Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well, Mr. Mark Lewis, a good follower of the show. This is his full portfolio right up until week number 9, and rattling down through it, Mr. Groome. Dysart Dynamo, 12-1 for the Arkle. He's half the price now. That looks like a very good selection. I don't see how he can go for any other race. Fitting well. I'd imagine we'll see him at the Dublin Racing Festival for run over 2 over fences. But in terms of how chasing debuts went, I thought he made a gorgeous shape over a fence at Leopardstown, Ronan Groome, and I thought he was quite electric.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah, he was good. Yeah, didn't beat much. Did what he did last year's and blew off in front. I potentially think he could be an accident waiting to happen over fences just with the jumping. If he can stay upright and finish out his race, he reminds me a bit of Ante-Post or Great Field. Those mad kind of head cases that Mullins had are so effective when you can get them together. But
you were a bit of a head case when he came down last season
I had my head in my hands
in the Supreme Novices. I was a big fan of him last year, of course.
Yeah, I was. Well, no, I am I do like those types of horses. I just think they're potentially win or bust type of horses.
Jerry Calam, 25-1. Let's rattle down through this quite quickly. So Jerry Calam, unbeaten over fences, jumps very well, soft ground. If we don't get soft in the description at Cheltenham, do they bypass?
I would imagine so. Yeah, I think Gordon's been pretty straightforward with that the whole time. He's always mentioned it. So it's a fine price, and if he did run and if it was soft, he'd be a huge player. It'd probably go a favourite. But you're praying for the heavens to open, I suppose.
14-1 for the Ballymore. That looks lovely.
That's a fine price. For all we just discussed earlier on, Mark, let us know what you think. Were you happy with what he did at Naas on Sunday? Because I thought he was very good, so you must be happy with 14-1. Hopefully, Willie does stick to his guns and go for the race.
7-1 La Hampress for the Gold Cup. I didn't think he was done with on a track that probably didn't suit him, going the wrong way in the King George.
Yeah, it's a good run, definitely. Yeah, he probably would take him out. You'd take him against Braveman's Game in the rematch around Cheltenham. So, definite player. Obviously, won the Brown Advisory in good style last season. So, he's got a big player, yeah. You can't see him really going higher than that sort of price, La Hampress on the day. So, not a bad price at all, 7-1, I guess.
Blizzard of Oz, I'd say we're just going to skip over this one because Ronan hates bumpers and I don't really have a strong opinion on this Blizzard of Oz. I'd be disappointed if something didn't come out a lot stronger than Blizzard of Oz from Willie Mullins' yard at the Dublin Racing Festival. Xander Clegane, 16-1. It'll probably be Blizzard of Oz now after that statement. Xander Clegane, 16-1 for the Albert Bartlett. I think that's solid. You know he's going for the race. 16-1. That looks fair. Obviously, the connections.
Yeah, I think he might go. Would he go? I haven't seen what Paul Nolan said, but would he go for the race that Paul Nolan won with latest exhibition at Dublin Race Festival, the 2.6 maybe there?
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah.
So that's interesting.
I think it's nice. I think you're going to get a single figure price on the day, with a big run expected at the Dublin Racing Festival, Mark. So I think you're on a solid one there. Stairs Hurdle Classical Dream. I suppose another question is how big a setback has he had? Classical Dream. Gallimore Hurdles seemed to make a mess of his season last season. If all's fitting well and he goes straight to the Stairs Hurdle, I'd make him, certainly he's a single figure price on the day, and I'd make him a player going to that race fresh. Yeah,
well, I put him in on the back of that, and you're just wondering, but like if he does, that's one. If you bet if he is going to show up there, I think he's vying for favoritism. He goes into the race fresh. Rather, as last year he ran, he had to run a heavy ground in the Galmoy at Go Run, and it just wasn't ideal. So he's shown himself to be pretty consistent over 3 miles when he gets his conditions and when he's coming in off fresh. So for sure, I give him a big chance if he shows up on the day. Yeah.
TU Power on the near side. Are we going to the Galmoy? Rumour has it we're going to TS this day, Mr. Groome.
I'll be there. I'm working, so I'll have a pint with you after.
Yeah, we're gonna have a drink at the Lower Bagnall afterwards, Mr. Groome. Might get you down for a lamb shank and a couple of pints of porter afterwards. So yeah, we look forward to that. Anyone who is going to TS this day, it is of course Thursday, the 26th of January. Always a big day in Gorham Park. And the Jerry Hannon impressions seemed to go down well last week. I didn't hear much of his impressions over the weekend. As I said, I didn't see much racing. Looking forward to Galmoy Day. Hopefully he's on duty. If he's not, give me the shout, Jerry.
Has to be on duty, surely. A big day like that, Jerry is all over it.
Absolutely. Let's conclude, Mr. Groome. Lucia 3-1 for the Mayor's novice. She's shorter than that. She's 5-2 in the place. I've they're in the team sheet at 6-1. Scope dirty before the Tolworth. Might be a blessing in the sky. I'd love to see her kept to her own sex now between now and Cheltenham, and hopefully all is well there. She gets there fitting well. I'd make her a massive player, and I would imagine she'll be favoured, if not close to favoured, on the day. El Fabiolo, 10-1 for the Turner's Novices Chase. Now, this is an interesting one because for me, from what I can see, this looks the obvious as the step this horse up in trip. You have Dysart Dynamo for the Arkle. El Fabiolo. I'd like to see him maybe one more time over fences.
You want to see him jump better, wouldn't you?
You would. That's. I'm just going that stride slower over 2.5 miles. Would that be the answer? I'm not entirely sure. No matter what distance he goes over, I think he needs to jump a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, maybe going slower will help him, but not an absolute guarantee either. I want to see him again for sure.
Absolutely. And Lassie Mount team captain 3-1, rock solid 6-4. I think she's hit the world of beating in the Triumph hurdle. So that is the portfolio spotlight. We'll be taking another portfolio next week, so make sure and of course update your portfolio below in the comments as we gear up, of course, for the Cheltenham Festival. And that giveaway, of course, on the eve, a voucher to the value of €500 Cheltenham Festival hamper. Right, Ronan Groome, next section of the show. It can only be one section left, and it is the of course the selections for this week.
Boyle Sports has it all. Money back meetings every day. UK and Irish racing live streaming. Extra places and money back all losers offers. And a bet 10 get 40 welcome offer. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
Yes, you only went and spoiled it after about 5 minutes of the video, telling everyone what your selection was. But sure, go on. The floor is yours, Mr. Groome. You've obviously spoke very highly of this Champ Kylie, and he is your selection for the week.
Let's go with the Champ. Yeah, for sure. In the Ballymore, enhanced by BOYLESPORTS very kindly, very generously out to 52. I think that's a fine price for a horse who's already a Grade 1 winner going into the festival, has shown Grade 1 form over 2 miles, which I think is actually one of the quirks of the Ballymore. It tends to go with speed. Speedy horses tend to come out of it and tend to go into it, as in, look at the likes of the horses that have won it before and then contended in champion hurdles, like Istabrak, Hardy Eustace, the new one, even Simon Sig won it and then went back to 2 miles over fences. York Hill had won the Tolworth before he went up in trip. So I think that he's proven himself to have that speed is significant. I think he could be given a front-running ride there. And 15-2, I think, is a fine price. So getting onside. More of a solid one for me this week, but much needed after another blowout with Arctic Brazil on Saturday. So I wanted to get a solid one onside, and I think he's rock solid.
Is he named after John Kiley, is he? The Limerick hurling manager, Champ Kiley.
I doubt it now, actually. The owners are from Mayo, I think. I think they're Achill.
I always wondered that. Champ Kiley. So, 15-2, kindly enhanced by BOYLESPORTS. If you want to avail of that, like every single week, head across to our Twitter page, and they're available to midday tomorrow. So if you want to avail of that offer, click on the link and get yourself a slice of that 15-2 about Champ Kiley. Mr. Groome, we've already mentioned my selection on the show already, and it does come in the mare's hurdle this time. And I was pretty blown away by Love Envoy at the weekend, and I'm loving what she's doing this season. I love what she done last season. 5 from 6 last season over hurdle. She was only beaten by Brandy Love at the tail end of the season. I think you can forgive her that, considering she had a hard season to that point. She won the Dawn Run novice hurdle, obviously, which was last season on the new course. So, obviously she's switching now to the old course over an extra, obviously, 4 furlongs on a sharper track. But I think she's well up to this standard. She thrives on her racing. She's 2 from 2 so far this season at Sandown, which I think is a track that seems to obviously see her to best effect. She's 7 from 8 over hurdles. Love the way she improved last season. She's doing the exact same thing again, and she is an improving 7-year-old. Big time. I absolutely loved what she done on debut over a trip I think plenty short for her. This horse, I think, is going to be a better horse over a longer distance, as we've seen on Saturday. And 11-2 enhanced with BOYLESPORTS. If you look at the market itself, I mentioned a couple of the British runners at the top. Marie's Rock, she's 3-1. Epitante 4-1. Does she definitely go for the race? JP is keen to stick to 2. Will they bypass Cheltenham altogether? I'm not entirely sure. Who's the obvious danger from Ireland? Woody Mullins has won 9 of the last 13 runnings of the race. Obviously, 6 of those were Quivega. What's the obvious Irish contender for this? We mentioned Tell Me Something Girl.
Brandy Love, if they managed to get a run into her.
Who beat Love Envoy last season, but I'm not sure that was the real Love Envoy that we did see. Just back to Love Envoy's form this season, because that's what everyone's going to be interested in. And looking at her first start of the season was at Sandown on obviously soft conditions over 2 miles. She shouldered 11 stone 10, so she's close to top weight over 2 miles on her seasonal reappearance, off a mark of 139. And she's done that very, very comfortably indeed. The second horse who was in the track, who we've mentioned him already on the show, Playful Saint, came out and bolted up since, was second to Love Envoy, and has got up plenty in the weights, bolted up by 12 lengths since then. Loved her versatility at Sandown on Saturday, where she dropped in. She jumped a lot more professionally in the race. She jumped, he couldn't stop her jumping to the front 3 out. So she's held up. She jumps her way into the lead 3 out, and she beats Martello Sky, who I think is decent form. This was her big day. She won the race last season, and she beats her by 12 lengths. Martello Sky obviously finished 9.5 lengths behind Marie's Rock at Cheltenham last season. So that's no bad form. I think she's bang there. 11-2 is cracking enhancement, I think, and I'm happy. I've taken a slice of that. So 11-2, Love Envoy goes into the team sheet, Ronan, as my week 10 selection. And you can't be having a bit of this by the sounds of it.
No, not that I can't be having a bit of it. I think you're buying at the wrong time. After a performance where she wasn't actually that good. She just did what she's done before. I think you're buying at the top of the graph. You know, when the old traders, when the curve turns in a way, you're buying right at the top and expecting it to go forward. Can she get any shorter than that? I'm not sure. But I'm a big fan of her. As I said, I've backed her after the festival last year. If you go all the way back to when we did our little preview show, our long-term early bird preview show, I put her up for the Mayor's Hurdle right after the festival last year. I think she's a lovely, lovely mare.
Boyle Sports, this is betting.
Ronan Groome, we're absolutely rattling through the episodes. And still plenty more to come. And of course, the handicaps. We haven't even got our teeth stuck into handicaps yet.
That'll be spray the cat amongst the pigeons when we start getting them stuck in. Yeah, and I still have my team captain to play as well. So.
Everyone has so the team captain obviously is a bonus selection. So in total, we'll have staked 44 points, 20 apiece, and then two captains, which is 2 points apiece. And I'm keeping that Ronan Groome from my strongest fancy in a handicap. So declaring that now. That's the strategy. So that's been week 10. That's been week 10 of the Road to Cheltenham Challenge, Mr. Groome. We will see you next Monday. We'll see you on Thursday. We're going to, of course, look ahead to, is it the Lanzarote hurdle on?
The Classic Chase and the Lanzarote, I think, yeah. And,
we'll be back on Thursday with that episode. And
the Danmore.
The Danmore Memorial Affair. Has he got up?
I won't be going up, no. I'll be keeping it low. I'm on a dry January, would you believe? Unlike you, off drinking Aperol spritzes in Milan, I'm keeping it dry for January until I go skiing later in the month. So.
Fantastic. Well, listen, that has been episode number 10. Of course, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. We've gone over the 2K now, so all support does help. And of course, smash a like on the video and update that portfolio in the comment section. We'll see you next Monday for the Road to Cheltenham Challenge. And it's been a pleasure, Mr. Groome. That has been episode number 10.
Download the Boyle Sports app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
Inside the final 150 yards, this is a special pair, and it's a Hattons full of grace. And it's Energumen opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices. Energumen by